Welcome to the Jeff Miller Show. Each week, Jeff Miller of the Jeff Miller Consulting Alliance talks with Podcast Village host Charlie Burney about trends in business, consulting, and much more. The Consulting Alliance offers strategic counsel and tactical support to businesses, corporations, and nonprofit organizations in the Washington, D.C. area and beyond.
Podcast Village.
I think it's been a couple of weeks, Charlie.
Tiny hall of Podcast Village. It has been a couple of weeks. Yeah. And were you traveling, or was that my fault? I think that was my fault.
No, we were traveling 1 week. We had a wedding out in Napa Valley, which was wonderful. It's old family friends, so our girls and son-in-law came along as well.
So you had the whole clan?
We had the whole clan.
Oh, how nice.
Yeah, and then the kids stayed for another week. We came back.
I went one time. Alice and I went to Napa. And is it Sonoma next door?
Yeah.
And I thought, how cool, because you could be in San Francisco and then almost immediately be in a completely different environment. It made San Francisco sort of twice as cool because you could go to the Redwoods or you could go to Napa and you could be in San Francisco, which is a great city.
It's one of my favorite cities. One of my favorite cities. It's New York, Chicago, and San Francisco.
Yeah, San Francisco, great place to visit. Well, whoa. I got it. Sarah has learned how to make sound effects. So if you see her smile, she's probably added double chorus with a flange and heavy on the non-fat whip to our voices. But you and I, for some reason, we can't hear the sound effects. Only she can hear them. So echo, echo, echo. I don't think that's what's going on. So Jeff, thank you for coming in, and I'm sorry about the time that I missed for reasons we'll talk about off the air. But how nice to have you in here on what is pretty much a hot day, and I think we're getting the hottest days of the year coming up. Like
supposed to be a hot weekend
tomorrow or Monday maybe. It's supposed to be a really hot weekend. So
yeah, it's really.
We should talk about what do you do when you're hot.
Well, you go into an air-conditioned room, or you take your shirt off, and you. I mean, it's. You
remember what Homer Simpson did? Anybody? Sarah? He would put a tent in the kitchen over the open door of the refrigerator.
Listen, I remember on hot days where you literally would go to the movies because that was the only air-conditioned joint around.
I do remember that in the summertime. Yeah. I think that might have been when I saw Patton or something. But
what's amazing to me is how whether it's a storm or heat, it becomes front-page news. Mm-hmm. And it's just one more sign of how we create news because we have to, because we've got 24/7 cable, and it's just really... I mean, really, we have to have a front-page story about the heat.
I agree with you that is not news. When we have a channel for that, I don't really want to hear about it on the front page. But at any rate, we're back for the Jeff Miller Show to continue our continuing dialogue of business and strategy and community and giving back. I'm just setting up some new. If I could make a quick self-ad, then Jeff, and I reach out to you as a person who's connected to many charities. I had another meeting this morning. Actually, you started me on this path to do short charity podcast, and we're trying to set up more on Friday mornings where pretty much any charity who wants to get out a 10-minute show about what they're into could come in the studio.
Charity, nonprofit.
Any charity or nonprofit, yes. Pretty much anybody, just as a way for me to get the word out about Podcast Village, but also to do that. As you know from the times that we've talked, I have a charity background, and I would like to do more of that work. It seems that I could use the podcast to give free what's called native advertising to the charities and the 501c3. So that's what I'd like to do. I should probably go meet with the chambers and stuff and say, hey, I'd like to do this. So I don't have a whole lot lined up, so that's my appeal to you. And then I know a gentleman named Tom Brantover, who's an old friend, does a lot locally with bunch of charities.
Okay, well, off the air, I can give you a couple of names to speak to.
So it's my way of trying to match Jeff Miller's dedication to community support and figuring out how to do that. I used to do it in another business where we had a tangible asset. So in this, guys, I'm trying to think of how can we, because I do think it's an important component to all businesses that, and I think if they don't have some form of giving back to their immediate community, that there's something missing in the identity of the company. So,
I agree. I mean, that whole concept of corporate responsibility, it's all about. The business case for it is, number one, it's branding. Mm-hmm. Number two, more importantly, it's all about the culture of the organization. And number three, particularly with the millennials, they want to feel as though they're part of something. So, as far as employee retention,
Right.
and the churn of employees is always what's a number one headache. And studies show that companies that are more corporately responsible and involved in the community, they have a higher employee retention rate.
Absolutely. Well, let's go. I want to tell you a little bit more about something that I have experience with. Let's try and build on that just for a moment, if that's okay with you. When I started out in my philanthropic endeavors at my previous employer, I had to sell the concept to the board. So this is a few years ago, and the reason I'm telling you the story is to get your reflections on how these opinions or habits have I think really evolved in the last 25 years. So they were sort of the mind, why would we give back to the community? They're not heartless people. They'd always given a check here or there for several $1,000s to the fire department. We're going to support the community. And I said we needed to have a formal effort. And they said, you have to prove it to us. And no one had heard of the things that you just mentioned, which was originally the study that I found, a specific one. Again, this is probably more than 15 years ago, it was called the Corporate Philanthropy Index, the CPI. Now, that expression has changed a couple times. Mm-hmm. But this was a study I found that proved what you said, that the brand issues, the retention issues, were directly affected by the act of doing good in your community.
Well, and sales as well.
Absolutely.
Because consumers...
Because you make your customers aware that you do these things as well.
Exactly.
But the question is, how do you do that, and how do you connect with your staff in those efforts, and how do you connect... I'm going to go nutso on you. How do you connect with those customers, with those giving efforts in whatever guise they take that is a intrinsic connection to them? And that's a question that I love to talk about, because I have a bunch of nutty theories of how we can try and do that. But the question is, for every company, is how do you guide your community policies, and how your identity for you and your company, it all flows down from the leadership and the policymakers. How do you decide to engage in that community effort? And I think that's a really important piece of
I think
corporate identity.
As you know, this year I'm the chairman of the Corporate Volunteer Council of Montgomery County, and
I do know.
And that's what we do is help bring together business, nonprofits, and basically make a match based on culture and interest. So, one of the most important things to do for a business, first and foremost, talk to your team, talk to your employees, find out what causes they have, what interests do they have. So you do that kind of survey because now you've got buy-in. And you decide on a budget, you decide on the project, you decide on how much time you want to spend on the project. Is it once a quarter? Is it twice a year? Is it a public giving day? Whatever that might be. Consumers hear about it if a company is doing its marketing correctly.
Yeah.
There's a sense that if you're giving back, you shouldn't really be talking about it, because somehow it taints or mars the true motive. Yeah. But in essence, I walk around talking about all the things that I'm doing, whether it's a CVC, whether it's a pro bono work up at the prison, a correctional facility, whether it's MANA, whether it's whatever leadership positions I'm doing and roles that I'm taking. I talk about that all the time. And I don't talk about it to brag. I don't talk about it to do anything other than really challenge other business owners.
Sure.
What are you doing?
Sure.
And you'd said something earlier about, talking about your endeavors and that it would never match mine. And I know you were kidding, but, I tell people all the time, don't worry about comparing yourself to XYZ. Do what you can do.
Right.
Do what you can do. That's the only contribution that you can make. So what's the one thing you can do?
No, do what you can do. We'll add that as a hashtag, do what you can do, because that's pretty good, Sarah. We got to remember that one. But what I did mean, and you're absolutely right, so I appreciate your pointing that. What I mean is you gave me an example, because I had forgotten that was something, to be honest with you, Jeff, I'd forgotten that was something I love to do. And I thought, well, there's Jeff, and he's talking about it. It's exactly what you said. He's talking about it. And I said, I would like to formalize what I can do, because I used to do that every day. But I had a wrinkle on that, and we can talk about, you can decide to cut this out later. I have a kind of a thought.
That's Betsy's decision.
Always wanted to infect people with this idea. Let's say you and I have a company. I think I may have talked to you about this once a very long time ago. You and I have a company, and we've decided on that amount that you just mentioned, that $10,000 dollar amount that, let's pull a number out of the air, that we're going to give with this year. So, and I spent a lot of time with my board when I ran a foundation trying to decide who we gave it to and what made the best sense for, and we made a complicated grid, and we had them all filtering and gave them all grades and had a complicated system. But at the end of the day, I had a disconnect, Jeff, because the staff, the people who are working for hourly and above wages, and pretty much everybody else outside of that boardroom hadn't been involved in that process. Even if I told them that we did that exercise, that wasn't very sticky. And so they didn't really care. It was interesting. I went to a meeting at the end of the first year. We had done everything to publicize within the company where we'd given the money. And one guy in the back of the room knew where we'd given some of the money because his grandchild had been to Children's Hospital. So we added another element to our giving, and I would challenge other businesses to consider this, and that is what I call volunteer grant program. Any employee of any nature, of any salary level, was allowed to earn, and I would make this number higher today, it may have been $50 an hour towards the charity of their choice when they made any volunteer time to any charity. This is all honor system. But then they'd say, I'd have people come up to me in the parking lot and say, thank you, because I got to give money to my very strange charity that I love because I can't do it otherwise. So it immediately connected those people to an employer who said, if you're willing to give your time to the community, I'm going to give my part of my money to you to give to anybody. Could be out of state. We had all over the world, you know. So that's my little pet concept for giving.
Going back to the earlier point, and it's really unfortunate, businesses' greatest asset are the people that work for the business.
I certainly agree.
And by not getting buy-in, by not talking to your employees, I just read a great book by a man named Aberhoff. This is my ship, this is your ship, and he actually took over the worst commissioned ship in the Navy, and within a 16-month or something like that, turns it around to the number one commissioned ship in the Navy.
That's got to be good. I may have even heard of it, yeah.
And the lessons that you get from the book certainly are applicable to business, to anything in life, but it's talking to your people. Hey, you're doing this job, not me. How can you do it better? How can we help you do it better? On Wednesday night, they would have barbecues up on top, and the officers would go eat in their little mess hall. And he said, well, no more of that. From now on, we're eating the barbecue with the guys, but we're getting on the back of the line. Yeah. And it's those lessons that, in essence, are pretty simple, that just don't get applied. And it's unfortunate. And I understand the reasons. The hectic nature of the day, you lose sight of these things.
The hectic everything, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you're putting out fires, running here and there, worrying about competition and sales and all of those things, which are very real. But just take a step back, breathe. Yeah. You know, do a little meditation and focus yourself on something bigger and more important.
It becomes pretty clear if you're able to do that. It doesn't take very long to look at it. And so that was my wacky idea for corporate giving. So and it was fun to watch people engage. So I think there are other ideas out there, Jeff, for the right fit for the right people and the right company to figure out ways of becoming involved. But
I'll share this with you, and it's not just companies; it's individuals or it's solopreneurs. So I don't think we've seen each other since then, but 3 or 4 weeks ago, I actually was honored. And I received the Citizen of the Year award for community service.
Yes,
I've
seen the pictures.
Yes, at the Safety Awards lunch.
Yes.
And so it's me and 25 other really important people who are who are first responders. And I got up, Nate, get up, you shake hands, and you get this thing. And as I was walking back, I said, I said to myself, and then I shared it with Betsy, recognition is great. It's always fun to be recognized, but the real joy is in doing the work.
Yeah, absolutely.
So find what your joy is, find what your passion is. And if you don't have a passion, that's okay. What are you curious about? What do you want to kind of just explore? So it's all good stuff. It's all important stuff.
Real quick, Jeff, that's what I say to people who are interested in podcasting when we give a little chat. My other Jeff and I talk about it, and I say, do you have something you're really good at, or something that you may not be good at, but that you're really interested in, and that's a pathway to the whatever comes next.
Yeah, my dad had a tremendous thirst and curiosity for life and knowledge on all levels. And it was fascinating watching him going through. The older he got, the more curious he became. He had a massive heart attack, back in 2002. And the book that he was halfway through on his nightstand was was string theory. And that was
I'm not trying that one.
No, and that's his mind. That's how his mind works. So that kind of curiosity, and to be able to feed it, it's not something that's exclusively belongs to other people.
Sure.
Every human being has the right and the ability to be curious.
Yeah.
And if you're curious about things around you, you begin to pay attention. And if you begin to pay attention, you begin to connect. And whatever hope there is, it's in our ability to connect.
Back to self-awareness.
Yeah, always. Yeah.
So
mindful leadership.
Mindfulness, it does really continue to work its way back into whatever we end up talking about. So, Jeff, thank you so much for listening to me go on about the Volunteer Grant Program. It used to be a great passion of mine, and I love getting a chance to talk about it. So,
Charlie, my pleasure as always.
So, just as a note, if you're listening to this right away, the world is a horribly complicated place, and our hearts and thoughts go out to everybody who is give a day. But this is Friday, July 22nd, and there's some horrible things going on out there. I'm not talking about the primaries, but our thoughts go out to the people in Germany, obviously, and everything else that's happened in the last 2 weeks. It's been a tough time for everyone, Jeff. So we need to continue to be mindful of ourselves and our environment, and keep trying.
Keep on trucking.
Keep on trying. Yeah, keep on trucking. Hashtag keep on trucking today. Always a pleasure, my friend. Thank you so
sir.
much. Okay, best to Betsy.
Thank you.
Bye.
The Jeff Miller Show is brought to you by Podcast Village, located at Launch Workplaces in Gaithersburg, Maryland. If you would like to contact Jeff or Charlie, please tweet to @Podcast Village or @JeffMillConsult. You can also email Jeff at jeff@jmconsultingalliance.com. What story would you like to tell?